Hi folks, welcome to the H-2A Visa Program's Basics video. This is hosted by the Cultivemos Legal Cohort. Our logos are at the top. I've got some names at the end for you. My name is Rachel Armstrong. I'm the Executive Director of Farm Commons, and it's an organization I also founded. And I did that because I believe that you deserve this information so that you can help develop resilience in the agricultural community, and especially resilience that is consistent with your values. A little bit more about the organization. Our mission is to empower agricultural communities to address their own legal vulnerabilities within an ecosystem of support. What that looks like day to day is a lot like this, educational videos. We also write guides, host workshops, we do a podcast, and we have a Q&A platform where we answer questions directly from the agricultural community. We truly believe that the best solutions to problems that we face as a community by farmers come from farmers themselves. So we also do leadership development in communities, and we're a membership organization. Now, today we are going to be talking about first the purpose of the H-2A program. Then we'll go into some of the legal obligations for participation. At the end, we'll cover our ethical considerations because the program does carry with it significant risk of human trafficking. Now, you got to know, this is not a comprehensive analysis of all the laws that pertain to the H-2A program in any way, nor will it prepare you to complete the necessary paperwork to participate in the program. What this video will do is give you enough information to understand whether the program is right for your situation and to go forward in researching for more information. This video speaks directly to farm owners, as they are the person who is generally in a position to decide whether to participate in H-2A and to ensure compliance if the farm does participate. However, the video is still useful for farm workers who aren't owners, because it will help you understand if an operation is in compliance. Keep in mind that this presentation is educational in nature. We are providing information to help you explore your own situation. We are not telling anyone what to do in their own specific situation, because we don't know your specific situation. We appreciate you keeping that close to mind throughout the video. So let's get into it. What is the purpose of the H-2A visa program? All right, the H-2A visa program is designed to allow U.S. employers to bring foreign nationals into the United States to fill temporary agricultural jobs for which the employer cannot find sufficient, willing, and qualified U.S. workers to perform. So in this way, it joins many other types of visas that allow foreign citizens to work in the United States. For example, H-1B visas are for temporary academic and research positions for which there aren't enough qualified U.S. applicants for the role. Technology companies like Amazon and Microsoft, they employ folks on H-1A visas who bring more advanced skills in computer systems design. So you can see this doesn't stand alone. It joins other visa programs that are out there. What's important to keep in mind is that the process of securing workers on these visas is designed to make sure that the intended purpose of the program is being met. When we get to some of the paperwork obligations, it might seem silly or like a waste of time because you already know that your job won't attract sufficient willing and qualified U.S. workers. But we have to prove that so that we can ensure the purpose of the program is being fulfilled. You will also find as you get deeper into the paperwork that this is for temporary agricultural jobs. So employment in things like the dairy industry or like value-added processing, you will find additional complications there. All right, so when we start with this purpose, it helps the program make sense going forward. Let's take another look at the scarcity of farm labor. That's probably sounding familiar to you, right? A lot of folks, if they're looking at H-2A, that's what they're experiencing. They're having a harder time recruiting workers. It's especially the case for folks that run hand-intensive operations, organic, fresh fruits and vegetables. All right, so before we get too deep into how the program resolves that situation, I want to clear up a few things that are often misunderstood about the H-2A program. And I'm addressing them first because they can cloud your understanding of how the program works. And I don't want you waiting for me to get to the part of the video where I address something I'm not going to address because it doesn't exist. So let's talk about some basic principles we got to know. Number one, H-2A is a visa. It's just a visa. It's just a type of a visa. It's the name of a type of visa that allows a worker to be eligible for work in the United States. It is not the name of a program that recruits or supplies workers to a farm operation. Separately, and at the same time as the business owner is working through the process of securing this visa, the farm operator needs a separate and additional strategy to find individuals in those countries who are qualified, willing, and able to travel to the United States for work on the owner's farm. Farmers use a variety of means to achieve that, and we'll get to that in today's program, how folks find workers. But first, we're going to talk more about how the program works and its legal mechanics. Second thing to know, H-2A is not cheap. This visa program is designed to provide a solution to a shortage of domestic qualified workers. It is not designed to help manage the cost of labor for agricultural employers. A farm business's labor costs go up usually when they use H-2A. And this is because the visa program carries additional regulatory expenses, including potentially a higher minimum wage, paying for transportation to and from the worker's home country, and more. The farm must provide suitable housing to workers, so there's the expense for that. So right now, we're just going to emphasize that this is not a money-saving strategy. At the same time, many farms they're fine with the higher labor costs that come with the H-2A program, because without that labor, their crops, their livestock may never get to market at all. Third thing to know is that just as the H-2A visa program provides opportunity for farmers and for farm workers, it creates tremendous vulnerability. It is indisputable that the H-2A visa program is a significant avenue for human trafficking in the United States. Violations of the regulations requiring fair and safe working conditions are common. And importantly, farmers themselves often do not realize that the workers on their farm are being bought and sold, forced into slavery, having their wages stolen, receiving housing and work opportunities that are much different than that individual was promised. The Federal Department of Labor enforces these laws. It's a federal program. And even with a 14% loss in their capacity to bring violations to court, the federal government indicted 24 people in Georgia a couple of years ago for forced and coerced labor, physical and sexual abuse of workers, and the sale and trade of human labor for profit. So this goes alongside recent indictments in Florida, South Carolina, and others. Now, we know the vast majority of farmers are ethical employers who would never stand for this on their operation. So we're going to talk about ways to detect and stop this from happening on your farm. It is possible to use the H-2A program and be a highly ethical employer in a situation where these jobs make your workers' lives better. So we'll talk about how to make sure that you are that employer. All right, with these three basics out of the way, if you're still with me, then you have passed the first test of whether H-2A might be a solution for your farm. Let's get into the basics of how the H-2A program works. Okay, so let's take a look at the official process of utilizing H-2A. You're going to find something that looks nice, simple. It goes something like this. Number one, submit your temporary labor certification application to the U.S. Department of Labor. Step two, after the temporary labor certification is approved, submit Form I-129 to the U.S. Customs and Immigration Service. And after that form is approved, step three, workers apply for the individual visas and admission to the United States. And after that, we travel to your farm to begin work. So when you look at this, it's like, we got two forms to complete, then we have our visas. Not bad, huh? You know, let's talk about reality and what it takes to actually achieve these forms. So saying this is 3 steps is akin to saying filing farm taxes is easy. Step 1, fill out Schedule F, profit and loss for farm business. Step 2, Complete Form 1040 using the Schedule F. Step 3, put the completed form in an envelope with a stamp and drop it in the mail. I mean, again, it's not untrue, right? Technically, filing your farm taxes is those 3 steps. But for anyone who's actually done it, they can tell you that this can take a week's worth of work, and your success in completing those forms depends on your tolerance for reading complex, potentially confusing instructions and having maintained excellent records and documentation of your transactions over the year. It's the same with the H-2A program. Completing these forms requires hours of work, and your success depends on following detailed instructions. You also have to have all your ducks in a row. You have to have job descriptions, housing arrangements, pay schedules, all kinds of good stuff outlined before you begin. These forms are like a quiz. If you give the right answers because you're doing the right things, then you get the visas. And if you don't, you won't. So you need detailed preparation to be able to complete these forms. And in this webinar, again, we're not telling you how to complete the forms. We're telling you what you're going to need to have in place before you even start so that you can be successful with the process. The wide majority of farmers work with an attorney or other H-2A support services to complete these forms at the appropriate time. So what do you need to have in place to be successful with these forms? Let's talk about your legal obligations. I've got 3 slides coming. This is the first. This list is not complete. There are or may be additional obligations for your specific operation. And these are a summary. And so for each issue listed, we are not outlining all the contingencies. Basically speaking, employers must provide free housing to all H-2A employees. The housing must be inspected and certified by the relevant regulatory authorities. That includes federal and often also includes state or local certifications for residential housing. Under OSHA, this is what is called a temporary labor camp, this provision of housing, and we're going to need to meet those OSHA-based obligations. Farm Commons does have a guide on with more information on what OSHA provides for housing. The employer must, point number 2, the employer must provide free daily transportation from employer-provided housing sites to work sites if they are different. Makes sense, right? You got to get to the work site. And point number 3, employers need to provide safe and insured transportation at least once per week to a shopping destination that can meet a variety of needs. Think of something like a big box store, that would have grocery, home goods, clothing, that sort of thing. Okay, so that's our first slide. Let's move on to our second slide of legal obligations. Employers must provide free and convenient access to kitchen and cooking facilities for meal preparation. Or if that is not the situation, then they must provide 3 meals a day. Now, you can charge for that, but you can't charge more than $14 a day for those 3 meals. And when we say access to kitchen and cooking facilities, well, that means pots, pans, dishes, silverware, things so that you can cook and eat food. So you can see how this one dovetails with the last slide's obligation to provide a trip to a shopping center. Kitchen facilities aren't useful if we don't have access to groceries and vice versa. You can see here how we are just making sure that those individuals who come to work on our farm have the ability to eat and stay healthy. Employers must provide the cost of travel, food, and lodging from the worker's home country to their place of employment, along with the return trip. Additionally, the employer must pay for all visa fees needed for an H-2A employee to work in the United States. Okay, I've got one more slide, but before we get there, I'm going to pause to recognize that these are a lot of obligations that are not owed to domestic workers. Certainly, you don't pay for them to commute from their home to your place of employment, to your farm every day. But that's because this is a very different situation. Many times, these workers have never been to the United States before, perhaps maybe through the H-2A visa program. So they are likely not able to be licensed drivers in the United States. They are not familiar with our cities and towns, our shopping stores, and will generally need support in connecting to all of these resources. So it just isn't the same as hiring the 18-year-old who lives a couple miles away. Last slide on legal obligations. Employers must pay H-2A employees the greater of the AEWR, the prevailing wage, or the state or local minimum wage, whichever is the highest. That is the one that you must pay. The AEWR and the prevailing wage can change annually, so you've got to make that calculation fresh for each year that you're hiring. It's fairly easy to Google to get the latest AEWR prevailing wage rates. Also note that your domestic workers, those ones not through the H-2A program, you can't pay them less than the wage paid to H-2A workers. So make sure when you're counting your total payroll costs that you are paying all your workers at least this amount. Employers must carry workers' compensation that covers H-2A workers. Workers' compensation premiums vary depending on the nature of the work and its injury risk level. So it can be hard to estimate a general amount for workers' comp. But on the plus side, workers' comp can be a good investment. If you don't currently have it, we have plenty of resources at the Farm Commons website on how and why workers' comp actually benefits the farm owner, and resources on how to manage premium costs. Third, employers must provide H-2A employees with a work contract that outlines their total hours for the season and their wages. Now, here's the thing. Employers must pay H-2A workers 75%, at least 75% of the total wages promised in the contract, regardless of whether the H-2A employee is given the opportunity to complete those hours. So let's say you have a tornado, a pest event, a disease outbreak that that wipes out the crop you're harvesting, and now you don't need the labor to harvest it anymore. You still have to pay at least 75% of the total wages promised. Why? Well, again, this is because the H-2A worker is in a different position compared to the domestic worker. A domestic worker who, discovers that there's no more tomatoes to pick can simply go get another job, down at the Walmart or the Starbucks, so the theory goes, but works pretty well in today's environment. The H-2A worker cannot. They would need to travel back to their home country and get another job. And if they want another H-2A job, they also have to go back to their home country, wait to get another H-2A job. And that is going to cost them valuable time and money that they can't make up for as easily as a domestic worker. All right. So as we're talking about things you need to pay for, please note that you cannot collect fees from H-2A workers for reimbursement. Neither you nor those working on your behalf can use service fees or the like to recover these costs for things like workers' compensation, travel to and from the source country, etc. So don't get creative with fees and service fees and all that good stuff. All right. To bring this back to how to use the program, we're demonstrating by completing our forms that we understand our obligation to provide each of these things and we have secured them. So the application is going to ask you, okay, what's the wage rate you're providing? Where are these workers staying? It's doing that so that you can prove you understand these rules and how to meet them. To many farmers, these are costs that they feel very comfortable providing, while other farmers are not able to secure these things. And success in this program often depends on access to resources. Some farmers have suitable housing nearby, affordable homes for rent in communities. They also have maybe convenient big box stores for shopping. Other farmers are far from affordable housing and aren't in a position to build their own. Some communities have more transportation options, others don't. So it all depends on what the resources are that you have for yourself in your community to be able to succeed here. So this is a good pause point. We've gone through the basic character of the program and the legal obligations. So let's consider this a checkpoint. And let's think through two questions to help you assess where you are at in terms of the suitability of H-2A for your farm. Are you experiencing difficulty securing domestic workers for temporary positions? Are you in a position to meet these legal obligations? If your answer is no, H-2A is likely not a short-term solution for you. You might need to develop housing solutions, continue to build profitability, or scale your operation before you can cover these costs. If your answer is yes, you might be in a good position to keep exploring. Many of you have already known about these obligations and might be interested in learning more, like how do I find workers? How do I avoid human trafficking? And that is where we are headed next in this video. And even if you're seeing that H-2A is not a short-term solution for you, stick around so that you are prepared if the time comes for your farm. All right, how do folks find workers? Farms have traditionally turned to industry associations, such as, say, associations of tree fruit growers, for assistance with recruiting. In order to serve their members, associations have developed networks to be able to connect their members to resources that can assist them with H-2A. Sometimes these services include help connecting to attorneys or other professionals, housing and transportation providers, as well as connections in foreign countries to potential candidates. In the alternative, some folks turn to church or religious-based networks that may also have networks in the target countries where workers are interested in these positions. Again, some other folks already are in the H-2A program, and then they will ask current workers if they have relatives, friends, associates in their home country and use word of mouth and those existing relationships to find additional workers. Folks are also able to turn to what are called H-2A LC or FLCs, which all stand for forms of farm labor contractors, to recruit workers. Farm labor contractors are small business owners themselves who provide for a fee recruitment services. They also often provide assistance with paperwork, regulatory obligations, and communications with candidates in their preferred language. Interestingly, we're also seeing FLCs take on additional parts of worker administration, like payment of wages, making travel arrangements, and paying tickets for workers. Some even hire the workers themselves and then lease those workers to farm operations, which means they may even handle issues of housing, those meal and kitchen equipment obligations, and more. Farmers pay a fee to the FLC for handling all that, of course. Now, the process of recruiting and hiring is regulated, and you need to make sure that you and your hirers are offering clear and complete information about the job that is being offered and in the language that the individual speaks. So this needs to outline tasks assigned, location, pay provided. And again, all that information needs to be in a language they can understand, which may not be English or Spanish. It may be a more local or indigenous language. Okay. Hiring H-2A workers also affects your domestic workers. There are several obligations built into the H-2A visa administration that are designed to ensure the program doesn't degrade opportunities for domestic workers to secure work in agriculture. So remember again, this program only exists to fill in where the domestic labor supply can't satisfy this need. So as part of that, you're going to be obligated to do several things as you recruit. You must advertise for and hire any qualified, eligible U.S. worker who applies. Your positions need to be filed with specific state agencies, and you need to list open work positions locally, which often involves listing in the newspaper. Further, again, just advertising the position isn't enough. You do actually have to hire qualified people. And that's not just after, right at the beginning, but until at least 50% of the work has passed. You're required to hire domestic workers who apply. U.S. workers must be hired at the same hourly wage rate with the same benefits as are provided to the H-2A workers. If workers are laid off, for example, the season ends early, H-2A workers must be laid off first. And remember, again, the H-2A workers still need to be paid for at least 75% of their contract, even if the work ends. Okay, so it sounds a little heavy, right? There's a lot of obligations to this program to ensure that it fulfills its purpose. And if that isn't enough, the rules can change and do. With increasing usage and a more challenging domestic labor market, the visa program is getting a lot of attention, good and bad attention. So keep an eye out for changes, both if you get into the program now or if you're waiting on the sidelines to see if it becomes right for you in the future. And again, this is a good role for an attorney or an industry association to help keep you alert for changes. You can always turn to Farm Commons, but there's certainly other professionals that can meet your needs there. All right. So we have covered a lot of rules and regulations. Let's move on to the ethical considerations portion of our video. The reality is that abuse within the H-2A program is around every corner. Anyone using this program should know about when and how that occurs. Now, I don't think anyone believes forced, coerced, or slave labor is acceptable, but it happens to H-2A visa holders. And with increasing usage of the program, we can expect these abuses to also increase. So when we're talking about this, we're speaking of trafficking, and let's define that term. Trafficking is when a person is exploited for another's financial gain through the threat of coercion, or through the threat of force, coercion, or fraud. What trafficking does is deprive someone of their ability to make basic life choices about where they want to live and what they want to do for work. It denies them their fundamental freedoms, and folks call it modern-day slavery. When forced labor and modern-day slavery are present on our farm and in our industry, we need to consider our ethical obligations alongside our legal responsibilities, of course. Now, I know farmers have a strong moral compass, and we don't need to convince you of that. But what we do take seriously is making sure you have all the information you need to follow that moral compass. So I'm going to tell you a story about how this abuse often emerges. And I'm going to use an alias. This fellow's name is Santana for the purposes of our story. The story itself, though, is real and is based on the stories of law enforcement officials and attorneys, specifically in Wisconsin, who work with H-2A visa holders in dairy and vegetable production. Santana lived in Honduras, where he struggled to earn enough money to make ends meet. Then one day, a man tells him he can get a decent job in the United States on a farm. Santana is interested. So he asks a few questions to make sure that the move is right for him. How long will the job last? What is the pay? What's the nature of the work? Santana has a health injury, so he tries to avoid bending down too much. So he's relieved to learn that the opportunity is in fruit harvesting. Santana develops a good relationship with the contractor. Contractor gets him a written contract, helps him book his travel, even shows him how to open a bank account in the United States. Santana gets to the United States. The farm and the farm owners seem fine. They don't speak his native language, but the contractor and his colleagues help him translate. Santana sends back his wages, a lot of them, to help his family back home, and things seem good. But then the work changes after a few months. He's assigned to stoop and bend down weeding cabbages. Santana complains that this is not what he signed up for, and he has health concerns with doing this work. The contractor ignores him, tells him to get back to work. Santana threatens to quit, but the contractor tells him he will be seized by the authorities and thrown in detention, where he will spend years if he quits the job, all of which might actually be true in the United States. Santana does the work for a few weeks, bending over the cabbages, but then the pain becomes unbearable, and he doesn't know how to get to a doctor, and he doesn't have enough money or health insurance either way to deal with it. Santana tells the contractor he needs to quit. And again, the contractor tells him quitting is not an option. He will stay working. When Santana persists, saying he needs to quit now and he wants his ticket back home, the contractor texts him a threatening message implying that he'll have someone back home in Honduras set fire to his grandmother's house. Santana again tries to keep working, but he talks with his coworkers and they go to find their own work together. But then the contractor finds out and pulls Santana aside and demands a quarter of his paycheck, or again, he will harm his family back home. Santana decides he's going to leave himself, so he tries to look for his own papers to get back himself. He'll pay, he decides. But the contractor helped handle his visa, and the contractor kept Santana's paperwork when he moved here. So now Santana doesn't even have his own documentation. He can't go home. His body is hurting. He's being extorted. And if he tries to do anything about it, his family will be hurt. And every day, the farmer comes out to the field, smiles at everyone, gives instructions, and the people do the work. The farmer thinks everything is great. Look, we have free housing, decent pay, a ride to town every week. What could possibly be wrong? But of course, there is something wrong. And as a farmer, coerced or forced labor, even slavery, and human trafficking of all forms can occur right under your nose. You can be a very kind and moral person and still not see this danger right on your own farm. But there are some things you can do to reduce this risk. And my story is hopefully giving you some leads on how things tend to go quite wrong. The best thing you can do to prevent human trafficking and preserve the freedom of those who are working for you is don't use farm labor contractors. Do the recruiting of workers yourself and develop the necessary connections to make contact with communities and people that want to work under an H-2A visa. Many farmers do this, and it does take work to forge those connections, often through past or current workers, church networks, or associations. But as you can see in the story of Santana, bad things happen because the farm labor contractors control over the worker. Wage theft and assault are not legal, and certainly it's not legal to restrict the free movement of another adult or to seize their immigration papers. But it happens all the time in H-2A, and it happens because these are people who are unfamiliar with and unable to access our courts and protect their own rights in this country. So the next thing you can do is to never give control over payment of wages or the provision of housing to farm labor contractors. If you use a farm labor contractor for recruitment, then try not to give them even more power over the worker because you are increasing the chances that that power could be abused without your knowledge. And especially if you do not speak the native language of your workers, you are dependent on the honesty and integrity of those who do to communicate with them. So the third thing that you can do is to find a way to communicate in the language that your workers know best. That way you can speak with them to learn if they are being paid honestly, as you believe they are, and if there are other problems that are developing. If you can do these things, you're significantly reducing the risk of human trafficking. Might not eliminate it, but it makes a big difference. Okay, so that's what we've got for you in this video. I've got a couple of tidbits if you're interested in more information. If you're interested in legal resilience for your farm overall, we have a workshop for you called Discovering Resilience. You can learn the 10 best legal practices of a resilient farm or ranch business. And we have options to take that class either on your own time or with a cohort of peers. Farm Commons has a tremendous amount of information, 100 plus guides, models, and checklists. We have an advanced farm employment law course, which goes into lots of detail and I'm sure would be useful to you. Our resources are available to members. Membership is how we make sure that we have the money to update these, to keep them available to you, and to let you know as the law changes. We also are able to take question and answers on our platform. Membership is affordable, but I know that that can still be a barrier, so scholarships may be available. See the video description for more information if those are still available. And thank you so much for joining us for this video. We really appreciate having the opportunity to speak with you about the law's requirements around the H-2A program. I am just one member of the Cultivemos Legal Cohort. We are Jackie Schweitzler, Whitney Shields, Francesca Gallo, Sheila Marshman, and myself. And thank you again.